Hello everyone, welcome to another new session on English grammar. Language is a credo of human communication. Language is absolutely central to your learning. Without it, you cannot make sense or communicate your understanding of a subject. You will need to develop your language skills and specifically your academic English in order to understand and make the most effective use of your study materials, your books, your notes, learning materials, thesis, seminars, presentations, projects, assignments. Anything and everything need subtle and proper faculties and skills in language proficiency. In every language, the speech sounds are arranged in a systematic order to form words. Words join to form phrases, clauses, and into bigger sentences. So the size increases, Now, all these patterns and arrangements, they are governed by an order. There definitely is an order in which words are placed in order to form sentences in a language. The scientific study of language is defined as linguistics, which is familiar to all of you. And in linguistics, word order typology is the study of the order of the syntactic. Syntactic is the science of the study of the arrangement of words and units within a sentence, and the syntactic constituents of a language and how different languages employ different orders. So, word order is the most important thing in making sentences. What do you mean by word order? Every different language employs different word orders. Word order refers to the way words are arranged in a sentence. The way words are arranged in a sentence. The standard word order in English is subject plus verb plus object. To determine the proper sequence of words, you need to understand what the subject, verb, and object are. What do you mean by subject? Subject is typically a noun or a pronoun, the person or place or thing which is mentioned within a sentence, about whom you are talking, the most important thing, the most important person, or the most important thing mentioned within a sentence. Now comes verb. The action or state of being, what happens within a sentence, what actually is taking place within a sentence, what situation is being delineated. There you go with your verb, the action behind the sentence. Then comes the object. The word object is the word or group of words influenced by the verb. Verb is the action. An action takes place on something or about something, and these group of words which are influenced or impacted by the action, they are the object. Alright, so there goes the word order in English language: subject plus verb plus object. Let me take a few moments to talk to you about objects. What is an object? The object of a sentence, if you have got an object within a sentence, it normally comes after the verb. Verb is the action. Whether there is an object or it does not depend on the meaning of the verb. If there is an object, if there is not an object, it doesn't depend on the meaning of the verb. The verb happens, the action happens. For example, if you want to talk about what someone is doing, you might be saying that she is writing. She is talking. But if you want to talk about the point of the activity, you might be saying that she is writing a book. She is writing and she is writing a book. You are more specific in the second sentence. She was riding. She was riding her horse. So what was she riding? She was riding her horse. Erica was writing. Erica was writing a letter. There lies a difference. You just think about that. Erica was writing, so she was writing something. Now, Erica was writing a letter. She is writing a letter. So there goes the object. In the first sentence, you have her house, and in the second sentence, you have a letter. What was Erica writing? A letter. And what was she writing? She was writing her house. So these are the objects which are impacted and defined and governed by the verb. Now, there are two types of objects in English sentences: direct and indirect object. Yes, there you go. The direct object is the thing that the subject acts upon. For example, he gave his teacher an apple. He gave his teacher an apple. Now here, what did he give his teacher? An apple. An apple is the direct object. So the object that the subject, the direct object is the thing that the subject acts upon. He is giving his teacher what? An apple. An object that follows a verb like this is called the direct object. Roy found a pen. What did Roy find? He found a pen. Our cat doesn't like milk. What does the cat doesn't like? The milk. So here, a pen and the milk, they are the direct objects. They follow the verb. All right? Some verbs, they also have another sort of object, and they are called the indirect object. An indirect object names a person for or to whom something is done. It is usually needed with verbs like give, find, and owe. Such verbs, they need to have indirect objects. For example, with give, we need to name both the thing that is given and the person it is given to. For example, Mike owes Tom £5. How many pounds? What did Mike owe Tom? It's £5. So who owes Tom? It is Mike. Rob gave me a box of chocolates. Rob is a subject, giving is the verb, and a box of chocolates is your direct object, because what did Rob give me? It's a box of chocolates. That's a direct object. And to whom did Rob give the chocolates? It's to me. And me is your indirect object. Now, second sentence. Susan bought her rabbit some more food. Food. Of course, it's the direct object. And to whom did Susan bought this more food? It is to her rabbit. So rabbit is the thing. A rabbit is the indirect object which is acted upon. All right. An indirect object is actually an optional part of a sentence. It's the recipient of an action, who receives it, who is influenced, who is impacted. So in the sentence, he gave his teacher an apple. The first sentence, the first example that we had, he gave his teacher an apple. So here, the teacher is the indirect object in this sentence. The sequence of words is critical when communicating in English because it can impact the meaning of what you're trying to say. Different meanings, different interpretations, different way you perceive things according to the word order. Now, when I say the sentence, the chicken crossed the road and the road crossed the chicken. I repeat, the chicken crossed the road and the road crossed the chicken. It takes on two different meanings because the subject and object are inverted. When I say the chicken crossed the road and the road crossed the chicken. The same would be true if the verb was out of order. For example, crossed the road, the chicken. Crossed the road, the chicken. It's absurd. There is no meaning in that. Word order in English is important because it can change the spirit, meaning, or fluency of a sentence. Basically, it's considered an SVO language, like such Romance languages such as Spanish, French, Italian, and Romanian, meaning that generally sentences follow the subject, verb, object pattern. That's a way in English language. Subject, verb, object pattern, SVO. That doesn't mean that every languages hold or they accommodate such a word order pattern. There are so many languages where you have the SOV, VSO, or OVS, different pattern. There are, I think, almost 6 or 8 kinds of word order patterns. But in English language, it is subject, verb, object, SVO, word order pattern. It's more complicated than that when subtleties need to be expressed or when descriptions need to be detailed. Now consider the two following sentences. He genuinely needs to do that. He genuinely needs to do that. Now I am slightly changing the word order and saying he needs to do that genuinely. He needs to do that genuinely. They use the same words, but they differ in meaning. Why? Because the word order is changed. The first signifies that the person really needs to do something, while the second means that the person must do something honestly or with sincerity. So the word order is important here, not to convey feeling or a tone, but to impart a particular sense or interpretation. So there is it. He genuinely needs to do that, and he needs to do that genuinely. The word order change, and the meaning and the impact and impression is different. Okay, guys, let's have a closer look at phrases, clauses, and sentences. What are phrases, clauses, and sentences? Phrases and clauses, they are building blocks of sentences. Building blocks of sentences. Phrases, they are a group of words that act as a part of speech but cannot stand alone as a sentence. The words in a phrase, they act together so that the phrase itself function as a single part of the speech. For example, they can function as nouns. Noun doesn't mean it should carry just one word. Verb doesn't mean it should be just one word, or adjective or adverb. So a group of words which do have some meaning but cannot stand on its own as a sentence, they are called a phrase. A phrase can act as a noun, a phrase can act as a verb, a phrase can function as an adjective, and it can function even as an adverb. Yes, guys, if you understand how different types of phrases can function, you can avoid misplacing them or leaving them dangling in sentences while you converse in your discourses and in your daily transactions. For example, eating ice cream in the kitchen was climbing up. These are a group of words. They are phrases. They do have meaning. When I say so, there is some sort of a meaning when I say eating ice cream in the kitchen was climbing up. But they cannot stand alone. One has to attach them to a clause, a bigger syntactic unit, or a sentence to bring out proper meaning and appropriateness to it. You just imagine when I say, on the table, was climbing up, looking there. It do have meaning, but they cannot stand alone. You have to attach them to a bigger chunk. You have to attach or fix them to a bigger unit to form a proper sentence with proper meaning and appropriateness. Now, there are different types of phrases, quite naturally, and English phrases that generally of 6 types: noun phrase, adjectival phrase, adverbial phrase, prepositional phrase, conjunctional phrase, and interjectional phrase. And we shall look at it one by one. A noun phrase. What is a noun phrase? A noun phrase is usually assembled centering a single noun. It works as a subject or an object or even as a complement in the sentence. A noun phrase has got every type of phrase has got its own structure, and a noun phrase has got 2 parts: a noun and any modifiers connected to that noun. Most often, these modifiers, they may be adjectives, articles, and prepositional phrases even. The modifiers, they also may be determiners. So a noun which is dominant along with several other modifiers, including determiners. For example, you can see the examples. I like to swing the bat. Just focus on the underlined group of words. To swing the bat. I like to swing the bat hard when I'm at the crease. Now here, to swing the bat is the noun phrase which acts as an object. Reading novels is a good habit. Reading novels. It acts as a subject. The probability of happening that match is not much. The probability of happening that match, there you goes the underlined group of words. There also it acts as a subject. We are sorry for her departure. We are sorry for her departure. Her departure. Again, a noun phrase. All right. We move on to the next adjectival phrase. An adjectival phrase, from the title, from the name itself, it's obvious that it's comprised of an adjective and it works as a single adjective in the sentence. It functions as an adjective the operation, the function, the use of an adjective within a sentence. Now here, the adjective word functions as a head of the phrase. So it's a group of words. Adjectival phrases, they are a group of words where you find a dominant adjective. It functions as the head of the phrase. And then you have several other words. Together, they work, they operate as a single adjective in the sentence. Look at the examples. Alex is a well-behaved man. A well-behaved man. There you have it, well-behaved is the adjective, of course, and man is a noun there. It's an adjectival phrase. It functions as an adjective which describes Alex, the subject. He is a man of friendly nature. He is a man of friendly nature, of friendly nature. There goes the adjectival phrase where you have the adjective friend, which is dominant, and a group of words which functions as an adjectival phrase. Julie is a woman of gorgeous style. Julie is a woman of gorgeous style. She leads a very interesting life. A lot of people do not sleep at night. Check the underlined group of words. All these are examples of adjectival phrases. So here, a group of words with a dominant adjective, along with many other words like nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, and other adjectives. They are termed as adjectival phrases. Then comes adverbial phrase. An adverbial phrase is a group of words that refines the meaning of a verb. Of course, it defines, describes, and modifies the verb or an adjective or an adverb, another adverb within the sentence. Yes, guys, an adverbial phrase, it's a group of words which defines, describes, and delineates more about the meaning of a verb within that sentence, or an adjective, or another adverb which occurs in that sentence. Similar to adverbs, adverbial phrases, they modify other words by explaining why, how, where, or when an action occurred. That's a job of an adverb. An adverbial phrase modifies the verb or the adjective, and it works as an adverb in the sentence. You can see a couple of examples here. The horse runs at a good speed. Now, please concentrate on the underlined phrases, group of words. They are the adverbial phrases. The horse runs at a good speed. I was in a hurry then. I ran as fast as possible. He works very slowly. So functionally, the term adverbial phrase refers to all the structures that can take the position of an adverb or a phrase structure level. Adverbs, they modify the functional categories that occur in a sentence, and they may be treated even as predicates. Of course, what's a predicate? You know, every sentence in English is divided. There is a binary division. It's divided into two important parts, the subject and the rest of that, the predicate. So adverbial phrases, they can, of course, they may be treated as predicates, and they are functionally open, and they require one or more arguments to be satisfied. All right, we move on to the prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase always begins with a preposition, of course, and it connects nouns. A prepositional phrase is a phrase in which a preposition functions as the important head of the family, the phrase head. Example, he sacrificed his life for the sake of his country. For the sake of. For the sake of is your prepositional phrase. It begins with a preposition for. In the end, we all have to die. In the end. In is your preposition, and in the end is your prepositional phrase. And you have more examples there. Please go through them diligently. Prepositional phrases include all other types of phrases. That's an important point. They can modify nouns, verbs, phrases, and complete even clauses. That means they can function as adjectival and adverbial phrases even. I repeat, guys. Prepositional phrases, they can function as adjectival and adverbial phrases even, and they can modify nouns, verbs, phrases, and they complete clauses even. Here comes conjunctional phrase. What is that? It functions, it works as a conjunction in the sentence. What does a conjunction do? It conducts the function of the conjunction. We do know that the job of a conjunction, it is to connect, links, and join words, phrases and clauses together. Conjunctions join, they connect, they link words, phrases, and clauses together. I hope you remember Smart Boy. And I believe that you remember the mnemonic acronym FANBOYS. Now look at the examples. As soon as you got in, he went out. As soon as you got in, he went out. We have to work hard so that we can win the next match. I will attend the ceremony provided that you come. John started working early in order that he could finish early. So in fact, conjunctional phrases, they are joiners and they link and connect just like conjunctions. Here comes the last interjectional phrase. Interjections, of course, phrases, they express emotions, moods, and feelings. Phrases that have more than one word, that is a group of words which express some emotions and feelings, they are called the interjectional phrases, and they conduct, they work, they operate as a function of an interjection. They conduct the function of an interjection. They express feelings, they express emotions. Example, what a pity he is dead. What a pleasure, I won the first prize. Oh, please don't say that. Well, interjectional phrases, they express different moods, feelings, and intentions of the speaker. Yes, guys, let's move on to have a look at some bigger syntactic units, clauses. What are clauses? A clause is comprised of a group of words which includes a subject and a finite verb. Be careful on that. A phrase is a group of words which have got meanings, but they cannot stand on its own. Whereas a clause is a group of words which includes a subject and a finite verb. A clause contains only one subject and one verb. The subject of a clause can be mentioned, may be apparent. You can see the subject, you can highlight, you can identify the subject of a clause. Sometimes it may be hidden. Sometimes the subject within a clause may be hidden. But the verb, you have to be careful about the verb. The verb, it must be apparent and distinguishable. It must be noticeable, and it must be a finite verb. Let me take a few moments to explain finite verbs. Now, what is a finite verb? Finite verbs are those verbs which have a subject and which changes according to tense, number, person, case, etc. Now, for example, when I say I go, and I replace I with she, and how does it look like? She goes. We won't say she goes, all right? Now I replace she with we, and it's a past tense. And then we write we went. So the verb changes. I repeat again, I go, she goes, we went. So here you can see how the verb changes according to the person, tense, number, case, etc. So that's a finite verb. All right, coming back to clauses. A clause is a group of words containing a subject and predicate and functioning as a member of a complex or a compound sentence. We shall talk about sentences in detail. We shall talk about the simple, complex, and compound sentences in the upcoming video lessons. Now, let's look at examples of clauses. I graduated last year. I graduated last year. This is a sentence which has got one clause, only a single clause, where you could have a subject and a verb, and there you have a finite verb. All right, I graduated last year. When I came here, I saw him. This is a sentence with two clauses. When I came here is a clause. I saw him is another clause. When I came here, I saw him and he greeted me. Three clauses. When I came here, one clause. I saw him, the second clause, and he greeted me, the third clause. Clauses are groups of words that have a subject and a predicate. Now, there are two types of clauses, namely independent clauses and subordinate clauses. For a quick definition of these clauses, independent clauses, from the name itself, it's apparent that it expresses a complete thought and it can stand alone as a sentence. It's a self-reliable kind of clause. It can stand on its own and it expresses a complete thought. All right? Subordinate clause, the second type. They can act as parts of speech, but they depend, subordination, being submissive, and they depend on the rest of the sentence to express a complete thought. They cannot stand on their own. So they have to attach, they have to rely on some other bigger units in order to complete a thought. So here we can see the two different types of clauses in detail. An independent clause, it functions on its own to make a meaningful sentence and looks much like a regular sentence. An independent clause, it looks like a regular sentence. You can say that it's a complete sentence. In a sentence, two independent clauses, they can be connected by coordinators like and, but, so, or, nor, for, yet, etc. Okay. Example, he is a wise man. It's a clause. It's an independent clause. It stands on its own. It has got a subject. It has got a verb. All right, it stands on its own. It completes a thought. He is a wise man. I like him. I like him. It's a clause. But of course, it's a complete sentence. Can you do it? Do it, please. Can you do it? Do it, please. And do it, please, you can see the subject you is hidden. Do it, please means you have to do it. You do it, please. But you is hidden. But do cannot be hidden. It should be distinguishable. It should be noticeable because it's a clause. I read the whole story. So you can see more examples there of independent clauses joined together, single independent clauses being statements or complete sentences. Dependent clause or subordinate clause. Here, subordinate clauses, they are also termed and known as dependent clause simply because they rely on others. They cannot function on its own because it leaves an idea or thought unfinished or incomplete. It's also called subordinate clause. Dependent clauses help the independent clauses complete the sentences. I repeat, dependent clauses, subordinate clauses, they support the independent clauses to complete the sentence. A dependent clause alone cannot form a complete sentence. It remains unfinished or incomplete. It has to be attached or it has to be fixed to a bigger unit. The subordinators do the work of connecting the dependent clause to another clause to complete the sentence. And each of the dependent clause, the first word is a subordinator. So when you look at the examples of subordinate clauses, you can see they begin with the subordinators. And which are the subordinators? Subordinators, they include relative pronouns. Relative pronouns like who, whom, what, which, and that, etc. Subordinators also include subordinating conjunctions. We know that, like once, while, whenever, wherever, before, after, etc. And we do have noun clause markers. So subordinating clauses, they begin with subordinators. Subordinators, they may be relative pronouns, subordinating conjunctions, or even noun clause markers. And just look at the examples of noun clause markers, like if, that, whether, however, whoever, whomever, and whichever. All these are noun clause markers. You have plenty of noun clause markers. So subordinating or dependent clauses, they begin with relative pronouns, subordinating conjunctions, and even noun clause markers. Look at these examples. When I was dating Dinah, I had an accident. Look at the underlined clauses. When I was dating Dinah. I know the man who stole the watch. Look at the dependent clause there. Who stole the watch? Who stole the watch is your dependent clause. It begins with a relative pronoun, who. He bought a car which was too expensive. which was too expensive. It begins with which is a relative pronoun. I know that he cannot do it. I know that he cannot do it. That he cannot do it. It begins with that. There goes your examples. So guys, phrases and clauses, they are the most important elements of English grammar. Phrase and clause cover everything a sentence has, and clauses are the center of the sentences, and phrases, they strengthen the sentences to become meaningful. Clauses, they are the head, they are dominant, but whereas phrases, they strengthen and they support the sentences to become more meaningful. If the clauses are the pillars of a building, the phrases are the bricks. You can define that way. A phrase usually is always present within a clause, but a phrase cannot have a clause in it. Look at the differences between phrases and clauses. You have several tables and explanations on that. A phrase can be present within a clause, but a phrase cannot have a clause in it. That's a difference you need to keep in your mind. In English language, as in every language, a sentence expresses a complete thought, and it contains two important parts, a subject and a predicate. The subject may include nouns or pronouns, and the predicate, they carries or they accommodates verbs or verb phrases or the other. Sentences are divided into four basic types in English. Of course, simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. And all these are based on, or it depends on how these clauses and phrases are arranged within a sentence. Now, this distinction is based on the structure. That is, they use phrases and clauses in varying degrees of complexity. English sentences are divided into even more different types based on their structure as well as their purpose. We shall see more of the classification of sentences on the basis of structure and purpose in the forthcoming video lessons. Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy.